That's the sound of the coffee pouring. Welcome to the Doctor's Brew. I'm your host, Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Khayyat, and having coffee with us today is Dr. Hashem Boalbanat. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very excited. Now, today's topic. Today we're going to be talking about a world that I and most Kuwaiti doctors have not entered, a world that I was only able to get a glimpse at when I would read my first aid textbook. And you might have guessed it by now. Today we're going to be talking about medical school in the U.S.
Absolutely. It's an absolute privilege to go to the U.S. for medical school, even though it's a very atypical experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm 95% sure that I'm the first Kuwaiti graduate who's actually currently in Kuwait. Yeah, I think we have two people who graduated. One of them was before me and one of them with me, but they're both doing residency and pediatric residency somewhere, but I'm not sure exactly where they are right now.
So suffice it to say, you have an experience that most Kuwaiti doctors don't.
Absolutely. So just to give you a quick background about what happens in the US, I think the last time they opened the region for people to go was before 2008 or something like that. And then they closed it for a few years. Then they reopened it back in 2012. I went to the US in 2014. So there was a lot of people before me.
Right.
And imagine from all of these people, I think I'm the second one to graduate.
Really?
Yeah. It's
rare.
very different. Yeah, it's very different. It's very competitive. And I think what sets the US apart is just how rigorous the selection process is. You go through multiple filtering episodes throughout the years, which I think other countries do not provide. And for Kuwaiti students who are abroad, that is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare because you never know when you're gonna fail, and that's what's anxiety provoking about the US. It's just, dude, am I gonna get sent back home this year for professionalism issues, for academic issues, for financial issues? And recently it was because of immigration laws. So it was you're always on your foot of whether can I be fully focused on my medical studies, or am I going to be scared about being deported recently, or am I not going to fail? Am I going to fail this academic course, or am I not professional enough? So it's
so a lot to unpack, because it's you know, like I said, this is only a world that I was able to glimpse out from afar.
Absolutely,
it's not something. And the thing is, Kuwaiti medical student is different to American medical student. The experience is totally different. So before we dive into here, today we had our roasting in brewing in house. Yep. Earth Roastery is our official partner for this episode, and they came in and made V60 coffee for us.
Absolutely,
it was great to have them here. It was so much fun. Now, I don't want to say anything. You tell me, what do you think of the coffee?
So as a coffee aficionado, maestro, connoisseur, call it whatever you want. This is, for me, this is the elixir of life. We were just talking about this, the Philosopher's Stone. This blend has been just really rich. I had got some creaminess without any of the tanginess of regular coffee. And you remember me before we even drank this. I was like about to fall asleep. I'm kind of euphoric. I don't want to put it at that. Not jittery. I do overconsume caffeine, but I feel so much better. And it just tastes really well. Residual taste in my mouth. Happy to be here.
And can I just say, one thing we mentioned before is that you were going to be honest.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm not going to mess around with coffee. I promise you, I'll never mess around with coffee.
So Earth Roastery, you know, this is a true review of their coffee. This was not not just, you know, trying to be nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I took an oath for medicine, and I took an oath for coffee to always be truthful to it.
Two separate oaths, right?
Absolutely. Similar oaths.
But yeah, so you mentioned you haven't been to their store, right?
Absolutely. I didn't know. I've never heard of Earth Rotisserie before, honestly.
Yeah.
Trying it now, I think that was a phenomenal coffee. And we saw the whole process, from the grinding to the measuring to the way they process it. I thought it was phenomenal. I enjoy a good cup of coffee.
I hope. Yeah. Okay. No. But seriously, was it a fun experience to have it here in the studio? This was the first time someone comes in and is making the coffee for us. How was it for you?
Yeah. And I think they did a fantastic job explaining everything to us. Because I know we do drink a lot of coffee, but we're not in depth about the process itself, the quality of the beans, the altitude. He talked to us about the layers of the bean, and I think that really made the experience wholesome.
Well, that's one of the reasons that we wanted to partner up with them, you know, is because they have such knowledge about the coffee that they were going. It wasn't just this is your coffee, drink it.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of knowledge to it. So for everybody who's watching or listening, cannot support Earth Roastery more. They're in Dye Complex in Bidet. And also check out their online store. And if I'm not mistaken, they also have branches in Qatar and Dubai. So for our international listeners as well, be sure to either online store or go to them in person and have this delicious cup of coffee.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. And so, as I said, as someone who's very selective about their coffee, I do give you the thumbs up for that one.
We got the thumbs up, perfect.
yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, awesome. الحين, right before we dive in, do you mind if you can move that cup? Yeah, just wherever, off. Cool, awesome. Let's really unpack all of this. I want to go into your journey from start to finish here, okay? So before we get into what medical school was like, I want to know what was in your head. How did you decide to go to the US? Because that's unique.
Fate. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Honestly, it was fate. So here's the process. I think we all go through this one, especially for us in private schools. I did go to NES, which was like a private school, like a British
English
system.
Though. Yeah,
British
it's an
English system.
Again, this is kind of opposite because British system is not
Absolutely.
American. Yeah,
completely different. There's no like GPA. It was just like your basic A, B, C, D, and then you have to take the Cambridge exams, and then you just basically get percentiles based on that. You apply to the Ministry of Higher Education, and then you get in. I think I scored the second rank in like the British system thing from the Kuwaiti students. So I was supposed to get dibs on where I used to go to, and I did initially want to go to the UK. I had no background information about the US.
You were gonna go to the UK.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna get to it. It's all about fate.
Okay.
So the process happens is just like I was very like immature back then, naive, unfamiliar with the application process, didn't know how to do any of the things, which is typical of a 17-year-old teenager. Yeah, I mean, I don't hold myself accountable for that, honestly. It's just a mistake of the past. So what's supposed to happen is once you get your acceptance, like they send you congratulations, you've been accepted into medicine as a major. Now we come to us to the...
This is from Kuwait.
This is from Kuwait. This
Ministry
is from the
of
Ministry of Higher Education.
Yes, okay.
So you're supposed to go there, they look at your ranking, and then you get dibs on whatever location you
Right.
So yeah, since me being second rank, I should have gone dibs on anywhere I wanted to go to. I wasn't familiar with any of the countries. I just know that I was in the British system. I like the British system. I just wanted to keep up with that.
Wait, you like the British system?
Oh yeah, it was like I was accustomed to it. Like in retrospect, in hindsight, I'm like, dude, thank God for the US system. yeah, honestly.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna talk a lot of smack about the US, but honestly, the US has been one of the best experience. I think that's the best experience in my life. It was a nightmare, but it was a very, very, very pleasant nightmare, if that even makes sense.
That's cool. Okay,
yeah, so let's get back.
So high school, yes.
So once I got my ranking, I got my interview. It's not an interview, it's like an appointment where you come sit with that guy and like, hey, you're second ranked, where do you want to go? It's like we have UK, we have Jordan, we have Bahrain, we have the US, and then you select from there. So who was supposed
you had to have an interview?
Not an interview, like you meet with the guy from the minute MOHE, your appointment. So what happened is...
Because I don't remember my process too well because, you said, immature kid, it just kind of flies through.
No, it's not even... I don't think it's an immaturity thing. I think it's just you went through the process flawlessly, like most people do, without the obstacle that I went through.
Okay,
so I'm going to tell you what happened.
Go on.
So my sister was supposed to drive me to that appointment. My appointment, I still remember, it was on 10:30.
I have a
my
feeling
sister,
you're going to say something bad about your sister. Go for it.
No, I'm not going to diss on my sister, but like, I mean, she took way too long to get ready. Yeah, honestly. I'm sorry. I love my sister, and right now I'm just going to say it. Thanks to her being late, I got to the point where I am today. So I'm literally not going to diss
Everything
on my
happens
sister.
for a reason.
Exactly.
Okay.
Back then I didn't understand it. Right now I'm glad that it happened.
Right.
So we got there by 11 and my appointment was 10:30. So when I sat with that guy, it's like, you're just going to be assigned by default. Whoever is left.
No.
Yeah. Whoever's going to be left. So that's how I ended up in the US.
That's really bad.
That's exactly how I ended up in the US.
No way.
And no one in my family knew what the US was like as a medical system because no one's been there before. We tried to ask.
See, this was actually, I'll tell you my experience in a second, but this was one of the main points that was brought up to me is that, great, we have a beta program there. We're sending people. We don't know what it's like though.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then as we went through the years, it became much more clearer to us that the person who actually made the program, who opened up the gateway to the US, actually hadn't planned it very well. Yeah, there were many obstacles. You weren't guaranteed a seat at all.
Okay.
You were just sent there. It was just like a formality on an agreement. But when push came to shove, there was nothing material there. Okay. So you had to do the whole thing yourself.
Okay.
So from there, I realized that there were 3 universities. There was either Temple, which is in
Yeah.
Philadelphia. There was Wayne State, which was in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. I'm gonna put it, and then there was like Morgantown, West Virginia.
Yeah.
And being a normal Kuwaiti kid, I had no idea what any of these 3 were. So I just went with my gut and just selected whatever they gave me. And they gave me Detroit, Michigan. So the day I told my mom about Detroit, she's like, oh, my mom didn't know. But then she asked a relative of mine who had a PhD from like North Carolina or something.
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, is he crazy going to Detroit?
Yeah.
Do you know
Detroit, for me, I'm thinking of Eminem.
Oh, yeah. Literally 8 Mile. 8 Mile is the street
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
like, it's like supposed to be the most dangerous street in the U.S. or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, back then.
Okay.
Right now, Detroit is incredibly safe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's an absolute pleasant, like, life in the U.S.
Okay.
To be in Detroit.
Cool.
Assuming you're a responsible human being who avoids danger, which I think most of us are. Yeah. Look, anywhere you go in the world, if you're searching for danger, you're gonna find
That's
it.
true.
Yeah.
Even in Kuwait,
Yeah.
which is a very safe
Oh
place.
yeah, absolutely.
You know.
So even when people ask me, "Hey, my son is going to Wayne State in Detroit. How was it?" I'm just gonna be honest with them. It's incredibly safe, like a very medical like state. Because
Just be wary, be smart of where you're going.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And I think communication goes a long way.
Street smarts will always be important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you said it, street smart,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just academic smart. I know a lot of us get into medicine because we are academic smart, but you need to be street smart to survive in the US in general.
Absolutely. I felt the same experience sort of in Manchester.
Absolutely. I think that's everywhere.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's everywhere. So,
So,
my mom finds out that I match in Detroit. I basically go into Detroit, and then she begins to sob, and she's like, they're gonna kill my son. They're gonna, yeah. Honestly, it's like they're gonna kill my son. He's not gonna come back anytime soon. So,
Poor thing.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, my mic got all
So
weird there. Yeah.
the next part of the journey comes to convincing my mom. It's like, you gotta let me go do this. I don't want to lose my
Because
career.
at this point, yeah, you'd lose a scholarship.
Oh yeah, there's no way back.
Yeah.
There's no way back, and that's like, and eventually I did hold a grudge on my sister just for being late. yeah. Honestly, if you were in my position, you would have done the same.
Your poor sister. Wait, is she medical, by the way? Your sister?
She's not.
Okay,
She's
so
an engineer. She's
there's
fantastic.
There's a chance she's not listening to this.
There's a chance I mean, I think she knows deep down what happened.
Yeah.
But I don't. Right now, I love my sister. There's
There we
nothing.
go.
wrong
Well,
with
if
it.
you're
Yeah,
finding
yeah.
out for the first time, this is gonna make for a very
Oh,
awkward
no,
family
it's
conversation.
fine. It's fine. It is absolutely.
So you
fine.
said your mom now you had to convince her.
I did have to convince her. And
Okay.
the way I convinced her is through my uncle, who has no knowledge of the US, doesn't understand Detroit, not qualified to speak about that topic. I was just like a 17-year-old who acted like.
Street smart.
Yeah, I'm a 17-year-old who was just like, hey, please help me. My mom is not
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
convinced. And he actually talks to her. I don't know through what gospel or inspiration she agrees to it. And then I go there. Okay, so now comes the real part. So I go there in around August 2014. And as I said, the program started in 2012. There were a couple of people before me.
Cool.
I land in Michigan and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Dude, it's literally like a shanty town in Brazil. You know, like everything, like El Jalib in Kuwait. Let's keep it at that.
Okay.
It's like everything is broken down. The weather is a nightmare. It's a very spacious place.
Well, this is a good point. About the U.S. is that because a lot of the Kuwaitis or us, when we go to the U.S., where are we going? We're going L.A. We're going to Beverly Hills. We're going to the polished places. That's not a one size fits all.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not. So this is the discrepancy that actually put me off track. Was the fact that I was so used to the scenes in Hollywood where it was full of skyscrapers, affluent populations, and stuff like that. And then I reached.
Wait, have you never? At that point, you never.
Oh
went
yeah,
to the,
no.
So there was no visit. There was no summer.
I had no incentive to go there. I've been to Europe a lot. I've been to Southern Asia a lot. I've never been to the U.S.
See, you sound like me going to the UK when I went for med school.
Yeah.
This is you to the US. Okay, but that's even farther. So.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about this 14-hour flight. And I'm like not used to it. 14 was the least travel time or lowest travel time that I've ever been.
I was on a plane when I was 28 days old to the US.
Oh my god.
So yeah, no, I'm used to it.
Oh
12,
yeah,
16 hours, we're good.
Exactly. The average I've been to Kuwait a couple of times. We'll talk about that. It's like 5 times, but I've had multiple flights that were 28 hours long through transits and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not that rich to be able to afford like first class and all of it. Yeah. No, I went through the hardships of it, but I'm glad I did. So as I said, I land and I'm like, what is going on with Michigan? What is this place? Spacious. There's nothing I'm used to. The scenery, the weather, it's extremely cold. It's September.
Yeah, it's freezing there.
Within a week of there, they get a major flood in Michigan. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to survive in this place? Yeah, it's just like, it's a nightmare. It's like they have all 4 seasons. So then comes me getting into medical school. And as soon as I realized, and I talked to the boys there who were 2 years ahead of me, I realized no one had
Kuwaitis or not Kuwaitis?
Yeah, the Kuwaitis. I think we were like, back then, it was a mix of medical and pharmacy students. I think we were a total of 8 or 7. That's it. And I had like 2 people come with me who were both medicine. Unfortunately, neither of them did finish in Michigan. Yeah, none of them finished in Michigan. One of them went back, and one of them is almost done in VCU. He's like a very good friend of mine in Virginia right now.
Cool.
So out of those 8 people ahead of me, none of them finished the program. Do you know how sad that is? And they were very qualified, very competent individuals.
Yeah, I'm sure they were not,
There was nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing wrong with them. But this is me saying that the US is phenomenal to study medicine because you will come out a different beast.
So now, okay, so one thing I'm wondering is, because when I was going for the Betha program, I wanted to go to the States, right? And then at the time we asked around and we tried to get the vibe of, should I go, should I not go? Because I mentioned this before on the podcast. I was ready. I studied in an American school. I spent a lot of time in the US. I was going to go to an American college. I got accepted to good programs, but they were not medicine, because the US, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, you have to do an undergrad degree and then you apply to med school.
Yep.
But the Betha, at least this is what I understood at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like the laugh. They supposedly secure you a seat in med school.
Exactly.
With conditions.
Exactly.
Which you have to pass the MCAT.
Exactly.
With a certain score, a GPA, and I don't know what else. Was that true? What was it like?
So there were conditions basically,
yes.
But there were many of them, and many of them were introduced to us very late in our journeys.
Sure.
So let's start. First things first, you need a GPA that's above a 3.7.
Okay.
A cumulative GPA.
Cool.
Okay. A science GPA of 3.75 or something like that.
So that's like if in high school for me, I think that was like a honor or that was an
not
honor
a high school. Sorry, I meant like this is once you do your bachelor degree.
Yeah, I mean like in my high school that was like an
okay.
honor roll level GPA, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
for college that was very intense. Honestly.
Yeah, of course.
So first things first, you gotta get a bachelor's degree in the US. It doesn't matter.
Cool.
It doesn't matter where you get. I had a couple of engineers in my class in medical school. I had a musician in my class. I had a teacher in my class. You had to get 3.7 GPA, hit a few scientific prerequisites, and then pass the notorious MCAT.
But as a Kuwaiti student, could you pick your bachelor's?
Exactly. So here's the thing. I know I was telling you about a couple of students in my class who were musicians, like someone who's like a philosophy major. Kuwait did not allow you to do that. Okay. You had to do one of 3 science majors, either biology, get a Bachelor of Science in biology, Bachelor of Science in chemistry, or a Bachelor of Science in biochemistry. I did biology, which is what most people do.
And let me veer off for a second here. Let's imagine you didn't you didn't get into med school. What do you do with a biology degree?
I had it. So a lot of my friends who unfortunately didn't complete the ride eventually came back and unfortunately had to end up with a career in biology. I know a couple.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so some of them I know work as teachers. I know some of them that work in the scientific community, Mahad al-Abhath, but I'm not sure it's at what position they
Bottom line, it's opposite 180 degrees to
180
medicine.
degrees. And I think the biggest motivator for me to survive was I left this country with my family thinking and always in the back of their mind that I'm going to be a physician, the first physician in the family. I just couldn't hold myself upright if I didn't finish the journey as a physician.
That's really amazing.
And that's the thing that I feel like set me apart. It's just I came from just a normal family, no physicians. They had a lot of faith in me. I just couldn't let them down. So I just went through that journey from top to bottom. So that's why I hold myself like dearest to my heart. It's just the grit that came with it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So let's get back to
prerequisites.
Prerequisites.
So we said.
So this is a really important point. When you go to the Ministry of MOHE, I think this is still ongoing. They tell you don't go to the US because of the MCAT. They don't tell you what the MCAT is. You think it's just an IELTS exam. I can tell you right now, if you score a 9 on the IELTS, it means nothing in the English section.
It's not an English exam though.
There is an English section on it.
But it's not an English exam.
It's a science exam. It's a very tough science exam. And I can't reiterate or state it. It's a very, very, very tough exam. I guarantee you it will knock you down. It's too tough. It's
worse than the steps.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but steps is different.
Different.
Yeah,
league. Okay,
there's
cool.
different but as a wager, there's more on stakes.
True.
Because here's the thing: while the U.S. students can take the MCAT multiple times, we and as Kuwaiti students don't have that liberty.
Oh.
Because you're on a visa, you're on a timeline. Basically, your clock is always ticking.
And okay, hold on. MCAT wise, when do you do it in undergrad?
So it's advised that you take it the year before you apply to med school. So bachelor degree is usually 4 years. I finished mine in 4 years. So at the end of my third year of my bachelor degree, I took the MCAT.
What's to stop you from doing it like once a year?
You can do it. It's just they'll see your score every time. So basically, the med school process in the US is incredibly competitive. So the reason why they have all of these contingencies is just to make it as competitive as possible. Because the US medical system is it basically enriches your life in multiple ways. One of them, you do get financially better. Like the lowest salary I've seen for a physician is $190,000 US dollars, and that's for pediatrics usually. I've seen contracts signed in front of me for $1.5 million a year.
Really?
Yeah, cardiology. Yeah, I've seen it.
Really?
$1.5 million. I know that sounds like an out of the world number. I've seen it being signed in front of me. Wow. Yeah. So it's like in a country where everyone 1.5 million a year. Yeah.
As an attending,
as an attending. Resident salaries are no. I feel like average salary is 55 to 70,000 a year. But once you become an attending, it's a completely different ballgame.
So going in, you had to the MCAT, and then you had to pass 3.7. What
get
else?
Your bachelor degree, and then comes the other fluff. You had to show leadership. You had to show volunteering. You had to have research.
This is.
And
but this is part of the prerequisites that Kuwait sets?
No, Kuwait has no idea that these things are required. Kuwait thinks it's just like these guys have to pass the MCAT.
So that's the point that I'm kind of confused about, is that my understanding was Kuwait has an agreement with the American university, and they have these spots held for you if you pass with a GPA and an MCAT. There's nothing else.
Just a formality. I'm just gonna keep it at
that.
Nothing that serious.
No.
I'm pretty sure even if they show me the papers right now and it's signed, I'm gonna tell them what happened to all of the students that managed to meet both criteria but you denied them the interview. What happened to all of the students who actually got the interview but didn't pass the interview?
No.
And honestly, imagine doing all of this and then just having an interviewer who's biased against Arabs in general. Because of one person, you can lose your seat.
No, because that's the thing that I would not. My reasoning for not going to the U.S. was, and I was kind of hesitant about it, but you've changed my perspective now. I always said to myself I want to go to college and I want to know I'm going to med school. You know?
Yes.
So I thought that with the Kuwaiti program, at least, okay, if I do well on the MCAT and I do well on my GPA, then I'd go in. But I didn't realize that there's.
Oh no, hell no. So when I went to my interview, I was the leader of 3 organizations. I used to teach chemistry and physics in undergrad. I had published papers in 3 conferences at the age of like 21. I had tons of research background. I used to volunteer at 3 hospitals. I was literally just working maniac all day, every day, on top of maintaining my academics.
Yeah.
I had like a 6-page CV, which was like, for a guy who was 22, was phenomenal. I know that no one else had to go through that. No one else. And I feel so thankful that there were 2 classes ahead of me, because these guys were the bait for their demise was the reason why I succeeded.
Okay, but is it this changing? Because this is not fair.
Exactly. So it's not fair, and I need to put that under 100 red lines beneath it.
Yeah.
It's not fair, and I think there was a student in Philadelphia. My brother used to study in Philly, but not medicine. He said one of his friends met all of the criteria, the Kuwait criteria.
Yeah. That's the thing. I know that getting into med school is extremely tough, but what I'm talking about is our government program.
Absolutely.
Not the standard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to be in mind, like we are not as privileged as you think you are. I know I'm very thankful that Kuwait gave us this opportunity.
Yeah.
But relative to my American peers, like they were introduced to the prerequisites of medicine from high school. They know they had an MCAT.
Yeah.
So some of them prepare their CVs. I honestly, some of them prepare their CVs like from second year of high school.
Again, the big reason why I didn't go to the US was because I knew of the challenges of getting accepted, just on the normal pathway. and I said that it would be safer for me to go to the UK to get accepted from
Absolutely,
day one.
absolutely.
Okay.
So just to give
So
you,
it was a good. I mean, like in terms of safety. I was right. Okay.
Absolutely. So for my college, which was Wayne State, it's the largest med school in the US. We had for my year, we had 12,000 applicants for 300 seats. That is an astonishing number, and every single one of these applicants is a very qualified candidate.
Right.
Like no one's gonna waste their money and apply. It's not a free application.
Right.
And the US, no one's gonna support you. So when these guys pay for the application, and it's only US citizens. It's only US citizens.
Right.
Yeah, international students don't apply to the US.
Okay.
They don't. Like I've seen programs say we don't accept international students up front.
Wow.
So you're not that privileged. Yes, Kuwait does help you. Like, hey, we've talked to this school, but it's not like, hey, I've gone and secured a seat.
So there's no seat held.
There is no seat.
This
held.
is dispelling a huge myth.
They told us that it may have changed. It may have changed because
at least from your experience.
Yeah. So let's go back to that student from Philadelphia who met everything. Because initially it was like there was a program in Morgantown, West Virginia. So one of the three was Morgantown, West Virginia, Philadelphia, Temple, and then Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, which is where I went to. I don't think Morgantown is still open. Right now, what's instead of taking its place is Virginia Commonwealth. They had an own program. After one student, he went viral on Twitter. I think he was complaining about how he met everything, met the criteria, and he still didn't get the seat. And he was incredibly frustrated. But thanks to his vocality, that he was able to actually put pressure on the people who were responsible for this to actually seek somewhere else that would guarantee students a seat. And thanks to his initiative and all of the people who played a role in this, I know multiple students, and I thankfully know, like, thanks to their efforts, there are many students who are actually right now in Virginia.
Can I highlight something here?
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I learned in medical school, and I feel like it's something I learned from my experience. We have more power than we think.
Absolutely.
And we need to capitalize on it. I feel like we keep waiting, and this is just generally. Research, studying, a lot of things. We wait for people, we wait for guidance.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to just go and jump ahead.
And
you should.
Let me ask you, why do you think that is?
Well, I don't want to say it's easier because I've seen some hardworking people not do that. I think it's fear. They're worried that something might not be as good. You know what I mean? Like I remember for research papers that I've done or whatever, I've had people where I went to them and I said, you know what? Hey, let's go do this, and they said no, but we don't have a supervisor. I'm like, who cares? Go for
exactly,
it.
Absolutely.
And they think, oh, the quality's not going to be as good. But look at what that student did. He went on Twitter. He was vocal about the injustice. He was vocal about the issues. He laid out his argument, and he helped not himself, generations of people.
Absolutely. And I think everyone who got into Virginia because of his initiative should be thankful to that guy.
There we go. See, exactly. Grab life by the hands and do it.
You do have the power to change. I think in Kuwait, what happens is we're so used to this culture of like life is easier than what is outside. Because to be honest with you, the biggest thing I've learned from living in Detroit, which is a very low socioeconomic status population, you're gonna see all of the illnesses that you don't see in an affluent population like Kuwait. Like you see a lot of HIV, TB, hepatitis. You see all of these diseases. What you actually learn is that life is actually very tough for people.
But what would you say just to counter that? A lot of people are not aware of what life is kind of like outside, because I'll tell you, like, for example, most of the people that I was with, I went through when I was applying to U.S. colleges, I went through the normal Common App applying to colleges, you know. I didn't go through the beta first.
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they had to apply, when we were in the UK, they had to apply and whatever, it was a new experience for them. They weren't aware of like college applications outside of the beta program in Kuwait. So what would you say to that? Like, do you think that people are unaware of what it's like outside, or do you think they're
1,000,000%.
So they're just unaware. Okay.
They're 100% unaware. But I think one of the most important aspects that deter people away initially, because we do have a lot of people who come in. We had I remember when I was at third year, we had like over 80 students come between
Kuwaiti.
Medicine. Cool. Between medicine and pharmacy, we had, I want to say 80 over 2 years, 2 years. That was a lot of students. You know how many people stayed from these 80? 3. Not because they failed the program or anything. They just came, they realized, what the hell is this infrastructure? Because Kuwait has like really nice infrastructure when you compare it to what's going on in Michigan.
Yeah.
So they're like, they see the weather, they see the population, they just can't handle it. It's just too massive of a cultural shock.
Yeah.
And what I'm here to tell you is that this was literally the best part of my experience. You literally learn to assimilate with people who are completely different from you. And what that opens up is just the narrative in your head that, look, there are people who are suffering differently. And they're living differently. Their needs are different than yours. Yeah. Their way of thinking is different relative to yours. And one thing I'm really proud of about the people in Detroit in general is how much they take care of themselves, their city. Because when I went there in 2014, compared to when I left in 2022, about 7 to 9 months ago, there was a massive difference. I do have photos before and after, and you'd be shocked about how much they're
invest in their community.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot of issues. But this is what I'm trying to say. In the US, what I realize is a lot of people, especially like college students, they do help one another. They do help their population. They care about the volunteering.
And then what do you think of Kuwait?
So I think Kuwait, there's a lot of potential. But what ends up is our limitations are, I think they're governmentally set. I don't think we're not. And I kind of agree with it. We don't need to be doing what they are doing in the US. Like volunteering is good for you. Like as a cousin of mine used to say, it helps control your ego. It does.
It's good for the soul.
It's good for this. It's good for your ego. So I'll tell you why. I did volunteer with Loyak. I used to work in Elevation Burger. That was in 2013. So I graduated.
Where you volunteered in Elevation Burger?
Yeah, it's like Loyak's like sent you to like Loyak is literally a charity organization.
But like, see, I get sorry, but the opposite to what in the US, that would just be a normal job. That wouldn't
be. They did pay you, but I never took the money. I don't know. I never took the money, so they did pay you. So I was set to like work in Elevation Burger. It's just like an internship or something like that. But here's why I'm saying it's good for the Higa, because I remember once I saw my friends coming up the escalator, and as soon as I saw them, I just couldn't hold to see myself as an Elevation Burger worker, and then I ran from the back door. And
really?
Yeah, honestly, I know it's very disappointing to hear, but that's why I'm just.
No, but you check yourself.
You check yourself.
Yeah.
This, I think the root cause of this is not just self-induced. I think it's just like, oh my God, how do I see myself in this position? As a society, I can't. This is like, I'm a failure in society. When I went to the US, I worked for Gleaners, which is basically me cleaning streets. I did not care. I just saw people around me doing it. I saw the joy in people's eyes. I saw the difference first insight, and then I was like, volunteering is good for you. Being in charge of leadership, actually seeing the change, being part of the change.
And these are the things that were required for you to get into med school.
Absolutely. And these are the things, in retrospect, in hindsight, I'll just tell you, these are the things that make you a better doctor. I know I've told you this before. What sets the US apart is not the medical knowledge. Yes, there's a selection process. There is a selection process. Yeah. It's very academic. I agree with you. But compared to people who graduate from elsewhere, we're all equally competent in our medical knowledge.
Yeah, we are.
We are. And I think even in the US, there's very strong research that suggests that where you rank in your med school class does not influence your actual patient outcomes.
I think I've seen similar.
So this is why most residency programs, they do not filter based on class rank. They do not really care. Performance is not based on that. But I think what sets the US apart is the other aspects of being a good doctor, which is your empathy, your compassion, your professionalism. I know these are cliche statements that are thrown around that people hate. Professionalism, leadership, interpersonal dynamics. People hate these statements thinking that medicine is just knowledge. It is not. It is way more than that.
There's so much more.
Exactly. It's being able to recognize the healthcare disparities. It's being able to assess the patient's accessibility to healthcare. This is why one of the things I've been facing recently in Kuwait. We get a lot of people who are foreigners here.
Yeah.
People who are from low socioeconomic status places. Can't speak the common tongue.
Yeah.
Do not understand what we're trying to tell them. We go tell them, hey, you need this procedure A, B, C. You need this medication A, B, C. The guy is it's very evident that the guy does not understand what we're telling him, and he just nods. Yeah. And then we send him off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is not the way it's supposed to be. There is a definite impact on the health outcome of this population. But again, this is another thing that I want to tap into. In Kuwait, we don't have the biostats. We're not tracking the population. We're not tracking
which is something that's central, I know, to
it's the core fundamental principle of what good medicine should be. How, what are doctors ordering? When a Kuwaiti resident comes in, relative to when a non-Kuwaiti resident come in, How is the difference in health outcome?
So is this something that you'd say that was ingrained in you because of your experience in the US?
They don't teach it to you up front, but through constant exposure to this, when you come back, you realize, wait, this can't be right. This guy it's very evident that this guy did not understand what we told him. It's very evident that this guy does not have access to this.
So now, okay, so in terms of your experience in medical school, just briefly tell me, what was the structure like, so I can kind of contextualize. I want to see how did you pick these lessons up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, 4 years bachelor degree, third year took my MCAT, did my interview a few months later, got into med school around May, graduated in June, which is 2018, started med school in August 2018, 4-year program. Did my first year, okay?
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Full of academics, no, like a couple of like
preclinical.
Preclinical year. Did my second preclinical year.
The preclinical question though, how was the teaching style? Was it lectures? Was it textbooks? What was it like?
So it was supposed to be lectures, but we weren't forced to go. What we were forced to go was all of the other stuff, like the interpersonal dynamics, the professionalism, the problem-based learning. Because what these...
see, we had problem-based learning. Did you like it or no?
Our problem-based learning was not in the typical sense that we would be given a disease and just like, hey, what do you think this disease is? Our problem-based learning was like, this guy does not have access to insurance. Are you sure you want to order this test? This guy does not speak.
See, I'll tell you, for us, we would start the week off and and this is in preclinical, they'd be like, this guy has come in with chest pain. Tell us everything. So we had to go cover the biology, the chemistry, the anatomy, the ethics, the psychology, all of them,
We did have that. We did have that. I completely agree. But what they actually intertwined with it was some of the ethical issues.
Yeah, we had classes for all the Manchester viewers out there, CSLC. That was where we'd get, and we'd sit there we had actors come in to simulate things for us. I don't know if you guys worked with actors or not.
We did work with actors, but I think our actors were very like they were very related to the case scenario, because what happened is Detroit, Wayne State is surrounded by Henry Ford Health Center, which is literally one of the biggest institutes in the world for health, and then we have next to it something called Kermanos Cancer Institute. And then next to it is Detroit Medical Center, and then next to it is the Veterans Affair.
Okay.
So what you actually see from all of this is the hybrid of every single thing that you need. So we did have like an opioid addict population, like a drug abuse population. We had veterans, we had people with PTSD, everything. We would see everything. So that is why I feel like made the experience incredibly rich.
And so preclinical, 2 years of that.
2 years of that.
And
then you take your USMLE.
Step one. So
and that was
tell me, I wanna highlight that a little bit, because I tried in the UK while I was doing my preclinical years. I really did my best to also simultaneously study for step one. And so dispel this question for me, answer this question for me. For me, I found it near impossible, and a lot of people I was with found it near impossible to do the steps during med school, and not because of, it was not an issue of the content is too hard or things like that. It was just that the curriculum that we had was so different. It was impossible to study because it needed a different shift in mindset. So like certain things we'd be tested on where we're not coming in step, and vice versa. So you'd end up you're basically sacrificing your med school exams or the step. And then of course everyone's going to sacrifice step.
I think you hit the nail on the head. What the US does perfectly is that although you do have lectures, they're constantly reminding you that the big beast at the end of the tunnel is the USMLE step on.
But are your lectures tied, would you say,
no? But here's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because our lectures are basically given by PhDs. They're not usually MDs. So what a PhD does, instead of teaching you ophthalmology, he just intertwines his own research with it. So you're learning information that's not relevant to USMLE step one. But what you learn to do is, hey, I'm going to open up the ophthalmology section in first aid or like any of the other resources. And you're constantly doing UL. This is what I'm trying to say. The US has a lot of extra fluff. Instead of you having...
But do you think the med school warns you well about it?
Yes, because it's not the med school. The whole system is based on USMLE step one. Because what the USMLE is literally the most important access card to any residency program that you want to match into.
Yeah, of course.
Your score is detrimental to where you'll end up in life. And I'm not going to say just as a residency, in life. So your score in one exam will determine everything. And just keeping that in the back of your mind just makes you primed to always be like preparing.
Yeah.
But let's stick to the actual formal aspects of it. Is that at the end of the second year, you're supposed to take USMLE step 1, and your school only gives you 6 weeks.
Okay.
And
But what do you mean by give you, as in like, do you have time off? You have lectures for the steps? What do you mean?
So here's what happened. So I was studying for my 6 weeks, and then COVID hit. This was in 2020, which was an absolute nightmare. The worst thing that could have happened to me. And Kuwait couldn't pull me out because like you're a med student, you're a first line worker still. They needed you. So studying, volunteering, being in the hospital for USMLE step 1, most important exam in my life, had it delayed at least 5 times, even though I was ready. Because like
5 times?
5 times, because Prometrics was always closed because of the pandemic.
Okay, well, this kind of this gives me faith every time I postpone my exam.
Oh yeah. I look. This is gonna be my advice for everyone who's whether you're doing USMLE step 1, USMLE step 2, the Canadian. Do not postpone. Do not. I highly doubt there's any actual research that, unless you're very unprepared. If you're like 80%, like 90%, just take it, dude. Get it over with.
Okay, but let me challenge one thing.
Challenge it. Go for it.
The piece of advice that I've continued for my exams has been: do not book until you are ready. People have told me, but then I've also heard the opposite opinion, which is book and then just be ready for that booking date. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't personally. I'm more for the first. Most people I'm with are more for the second. What do you think?
I think I'm definitely more for the one where you actually pick a date, stick to it. Just focus.
Really?
Absolutely. I think there's 2 aspects to it. One of them is a mental aspect where, hey, at the back of your mind, subconscious level, you have flexibility to always postpone this.
But I thought if you postpone, it's within a 3-month period, so you can't exactly postpone like.
Oh yeah,
6
like
months.
no, but here's what happened. Because of COVID, they did extend our eligibility period.
Okay.
So I know, like, they give you 6 months. They extended it for another 3 months for all of us
Okay.
because the testing centers were closed.
Yeah, it's not in your hand.
Yeah,
What
it's not a me
what can
issue.
you do?
But the good thing about giving people this 6 weeks is when you actually set a schedule, you are forced. It's like a forced function where you have to stick to it. There's no chance you can work around that. Because if you miss a day, that's it. There's no going back from that.
But when the medical school gives you that 6 weeks, do you have zero?
There's no flexibility. You start 3rd year.
But I mean, in those 6 weeks, what is it? Is it a vacation? Is it you have lectures? What is it?
No. You have like, I think, like an online, on like a couple of ethics and professionalism sessions online, which is required by the board, the state U.S. board, for the school to maintain accreditation.
Sure.
The students always have to be bombarded by ethics, professionalism, regardless of what. But aside from that, we had no classes for 6 weeks.
Okay.
But everyone was studying all day, all night, because this exam was literally the beast that you're gonna have to fight. So 6 weeks, no running around, you can't miss a day, 12 hours a day studying, gotta find a way to balance gym, any other thing that's gonna keep you happy, and then you take the exam.
Yep.
And you don't look back. Whatever score you get, you get.
Yeah, so that's my next question. Okay, you do horribly. What happens?
Basically, if you're not a Kuwaiti student, life shuts down. And I know that sounds scary, but that's the truth. I know people who were conditioned, had everything going on for them. And this is why I feel like the USMLE step 1 specifically was very unfair, and this is why it went to pass-fail.
Yeah.
This exam does not predict your performance as a doctor.
No, because it's
literally the
Krebs cycle.
Krebs cycle. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of important information.
Yeah.
There was up to this day, I use a lot of the information as a foundation.
Yeah.
As a foundation to my
Yeah.
knowledge. The sheer volume of unnecessary material that I had to learn that I do not use right now is just baffling, honestly.
So it's a very good thing that they
made it pass-fail.
Yeah.
And it was literally the number 1 ranked, not risk factor, but impact factor.
Yeah.
For residency programs giving you an interview, which was your score. Let's say you want to be an orthopedic surgeon or a dermatologist. If you score less than a 240, which is like the 70th percentile amongst the top tier medical students.
Yeah.
Because you don't get into med school in the US just by being that.
Yeah.
And
but then, okay, what happens to some? So like, this is a bit unfair. So let's say someone doesn't do well on step 1, right?
Yeah.
They're in medical school. They're gonna graduate as a licensed physician.
Yeah.
What then? That's it. Their life ended.
It's not that their life ended. Their options are limited.
So what would their options be?
Yeah. So basically,
let's say they even failed. Let's say they failed.
And you guys can check this out on the NRMP, which is the National Residency Match something. I don't know what that is, but it literally lists all of these statistics for like students. So let's say you want to be a dermatologist, which was my ambition basically. You have to get like a 250, which is like I want to say 90th percentile on the exam.
Very high.
Insane.
Yeah.
You score a 210.
No way.
So the pass for USMLE step 1 is a 196. Let's say you fail.
Yep.
Basically, if you fail, you can't keep going, because one of the parts of getting a third-year license, which is a license to go into a hospital, is to pass the USMLE.
Right.
So
but can you do the exam again?
Yeah, you repeat it, but they'll pull you out of med school. You'll be like a bit delayed, and it's a hassle.
Okay.
And if you fail it again, you'll be
No way.
dismissed.
Yeah. Okay, so sure, you.
So you pass.
Let's say you hardly pass 200.
200.
Okay.
So basically, your options are limited to almost family medicine, internal medicine, and pediatrics.
Cool. Fine.
That's it.
That's fine. Let's say you keep going.
Yeah. So now when you apply to residency, you think the top 50 family medicine programs, pediatrics,
no
are
way.
going to give you
But
an
will
interview?
you end up somewhere?
You will end up somewhere. But here's the thing. I mean, like the match rates for like pediatricians are very high. It's like 96%.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering is, okay, fine, your options are more limited. So like I'm thinking like in high school. Imagine I pass in high school, I don't have the best GPA. I'm not going to get into Harvard.
Yep.
But you know what? I still can end up in a school somewhere. Is it the same?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it is exactly. But here's the tough part. Let's say you have a wife in Michigan. Your family is in Michigan.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you match in Philadelphia, in let's say one of the suburbs.
Yeah.
Where no one lives.
You need to now upend your life and go.
You literally have to move there with your whole family.
Yeah.
And people just cannot bear to do that. It's like literally asking a Kuwaiti student right now to go, and I'm really sorry about what's going on to Turkey and Syria, and just moving to Syria right now in the current condition, being from Kuwait. It's something tough.
It's a complete flip.
Exactly. And something that's you cannot control, because so the way the match system works, it's actually based on a Nobel Prize winning algorithm. You know that? The way the match process. What? Yeah, it's based on the 2008 economics Nobel Prize. Yeah. So the way the match system works is you rank all of the hospitals that gave you an interview, and the hospital.
Wait, talk about just before, because not everyone knows what the rank is.
Oh, so yeah, so basically
the match. Sorry.
So so let me just. I think I keep going back and forth on this. Let me just set it out straight. So you finish first year, you finish second year, you finish your preclinical years. You take USMLE step 1.
Yes.
You pass that. You get your license to practice in a hospital. You start your clinical years.
Mm-hmm.
So you finish your third clinical year, then you take USMLE step 2, and then you apply to residency. So what sets the US apart from every other place is as soon as you graduate into medical school, you start a board or residency program.
Canada is the same way.
Canada, in North America in general.
North America,
okay. So in third year, once you're done with third year, you're literally preparing your application to residency.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you set up your portfolio and everything on ERAS, which is the ERAS.
Yeah.
You submit your application.
Mm-hmm.
You apply to all of the programs you want within the specialty you want. You can select multiple specialties. The programs look at your application, and then they through the hundreds of people. So let's say you want to do dermatology. This program has only 3 seats with up to 700 people applying.
Mm-hmm.
So they filter all of these. The first filter is usually electronic, based on USMLE step 1 score. So
not anymore, but
not anymore.
Yeah,
not
because
anymore.
it's pass fail now.
But let's say this program only picks people who scored 250, which is the 90th percentile.
Yeah.
You're basically out from the start. You're filtered by 97% of programs that you've applied to. And to apply to each program is like $50. I applied for I paid $4,000. Imagine $4,000 for 100 schools to get 15 interviews.
Well, you know, one thing that they warned British students, if they ever want to go to the US for practice, whatever, they're like, hey, get ready to pay. You know, you're going to get the money later on, but
the greedy capitalist. The greedy capitalist. That's literally what the US is. It's literally the greedy capitalist. So you have to pay a lot of money. You have to save a lot of money. And I'm so sorry, and I'm very fortunate to have parents who are willing to support me, because the government. So again, this was a massive letdown by the Kuwaiti government. They had no way they planned any of this. They did not understand the financial demands that the US medical system imposed. I paid for USMLE step 1, I paid for USMLE step 2, I paid for first aid, pathoma, sketchy, all of the necessary resources, and UWorld. I had to pay out of pocket.
Yeah, UWorld is extremely expensive.
All of them are extremely expensive. They didn't pay a dime back. I know right now they say if you send us the receipts and stuff like that, we will refund you back. Back in my time, no one cared.
Well, I think what this is indicative of, at least my impression, is just the maturity of the relationship. So like I said, when I wanted to go comparing between US, UK, the thing that everyone told me was UK is well established. You know what you're going to get.
Absolutely.
The US, coin toss. And this confirms exactly what happened.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I was the guinea pig of the group. I was the first one in the, I was the second person actually to go into med school.
So now going back to your clinical years, you go straight in. What is clinical years like for you as a med student?
Yes, here comes the real thing. So this is where it gets crazy. So you do have rotations in the middle of a pandemic, but let's exclude the pandemic from it. It's literally you have to impress people who are very tough to impress, especially if you're different from them. And the good part about my personality is I can assimilate very well, but a lot of my Kuwaiti colleagues cannot. It's fair. I was in a British
culture
system.
shock.
Exactly. I was in a British system, so from very early on, I interacted with a lot of different people. I'll be honest, I knew how to kiss ass, and I'm it's a skill I'm very thankful for. You literally have to be like that, because if one person doesn't like you, he can again destroy your residency chances, because he can just fail your evaluation very quickly. He can write a very mean comment that everyone can see. You have no right to provoke or like revoke, basically, and that can set you like for failure. So you had like 3 months of internal medicine, 3 months of surgery. You had a month of obstetrics, a month of pediatrics, a month of neurology, a month of psychiatry, and a month of pediatrics, which is basically the intern year in Kuwait.
Sure.
I've done all of that abroad, so this is why I feel like, again, in Kuwait,
part 2.
Again, Kuwait, we should not be doing trainee year. I've done all of this, but
I mean, this is this is more model to the British system.
Yes,
this is what they do.
Yes, and look, I'm not trying to say Kuwait is bad. Kuwait didn't know any better.
Yeah,
this is my point. Kuwait doesn't know any better. But what I want Kuwait to take from this is that, look, I'm a learning experience. You should have learned from me, and they are slowly learning, but it's not up to track. And I know there's a lot of hurdles that I don't know about, but again, it's about being vocal. I think the US is the place to study medicine.
Okay, so cool. So now this takes us to a different part of this talk.
Tell me.
We've talked about how you wanted to get in.
Yes.
Okay, your thought process. We talked about the grueling side of medical school and whatnot. Now I want to look back. How was the experience? Is it something that you think I regret it, don't regret it? What do you think?
Honestly, if I could go back right now, I would go back. That's how much I loved my experience.
Okay, but you just talked a lot about how difficult and tough and grueling and grinding.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because I've had countless parents talk to me. Hey, I want to send my kid to the US. Initially, I was like, yes, send them. And then their kid fails. And you know who gets the blame? This guy.
Really?
Yeah, this guy. You send my son to the US. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
So what my approach has been recently is that if anyone asks me, I'm like, dude, your son can't do it. My son scored an 8 on the IELTS. I am like, dude, if he scored a 9, he will not be able to pass the CARS section on the MCAT. And if you don't believe me, go try a couple of CARS passages on the AMC website. It's a different beast.
Okay, but fine. Let's say tough. Why is it still amazing?
Because literally the US is the top place in the world ranked for you to learn medicine. Look, medicine in the US is not just about, hey, this is the symptoms, this is the diagnosis. It's much more than that. It's the ground, it's literally they are the pioneers of research. They are the pioneers of medical innovation. They are the pioneers of setting guidelines, of very good healthcare. And they're the pioneers of problem solving. And I'll elaborate on all of that. When in the US, when you see a problem, when you see a challenge ahead of you, the whole healthcare system is programmed to actually fix this problem. So as I said, in Kuwait, when I had this person who came in who couldn't speak our language, and we just gave him whatever medication and we're like, follow it. This is not how it works in the system. And there's multiple checks and balances in this. There's an electronic checks and balance. There's a peer-to-peer checks and balance. There's a ethics department. There's a biostats department. And through interaction with all of this, it's very subtle. You don't feel it. But as an experience, as a whole, when you move away from it, you realize, wait, all of these checks and balances actually played a role. They made me a better doctor. And so when you go back, even the subtle things, the structure of the medical program, the structure of the medical training, being around all of these people of different, very tough to impress people. Everyone is different. Having such a wide variety of things that you have to consider in yourself makes you a better doctor. I don't know how to explain it better than that. It's not like, hey, you have an exam, finish it, and then you passed the year, congratulations. No.
But let me challenge this for a second here.
Challenge it as much as you want.
I always ask this question on the podcast because this is the thing that really this is one of the big reasons that I started this podcast. You have a little cousin who just graduated from high school and they want to be a doctor.
Yes.
They want to go off and they want to be a doctor. A lot of what you described in the US for me sounds a lot like, I can't speak about the experience here in Kuwait because I didn't study here. But it sounds similar to my experience in Manchester. You know, in terms of the preclinical years, the clinical years, what is expected of you, et cetera, et cetera. The only differentiating thing I'd say between the US and the UK is that there's no nationwide examinations, the USMLE, that set you up for your specialty program right from the start.
Correct.
Right? So what I'm wondering is, I'm your cousin, I want to go be a doctor. Why should I go to the US where I'm not guaranteed a seat? And if at any point in the career, I don't pass, like let's say I end up with just a bachelor's degree, I'm ending up in a totally different career path that is 180, it's not even close, you know what I mean? So what would you say to me?
So it depends on you as a person. That's exactly what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Look, in Kuwait, it's very easy to settle into the idea that I'm guaranteed a job as a physician.
Cool.
That's exactly what any country, aside from the US, will offer you. But when you get a degree from the US, you're literally guaranteed a job anywhere in the world. And I know that doesn't sound so convincing, and it shouldn't. It's just that in Kuwait, what we have going on right now is, again, Kuwait is not a meritocracy. I know I've told you that before, we've talked about this. Anyone can get a degree from anywhere and get hired in whatever sector they want. And so for a lot of Kuwaiti students, and I think that's a very genuine thought process, is that yes, go anywhere away from the US. But there are a few of you guys, and I know you guys that are in high school right now, who really want to be the very best, who really want to extract the most out of your potential. You should go to the US.
So you'd say that your experience in the US maximizes your potential?
Absolutely. So that's.
But it's a risk.
It's a massive risk, massive reward. Massive risk, massive reward. I'm gonna say this, and I hope this is very apparent from my discussion. The US is not for everyone. It's for those who are up for the challenge. It's for those who want a Navy SEAL kind of medical training. It really is. It really is.
You know, the thing that kind of brings to mind for me is that you also need to be happy with where you would also land otherwise. Because I know a lot of people that told me that if it's not medicine, I do not want, for example, there's no way I can go in another career path. You know what I mean? I feel like if you're not ready to give that up,
I know what you mean, but I kind of I'm a polar opposite, because I am one of those guys.
It was medicine or nothing?
It was either medicine or suicide. And not that.
Yeah.
It was I had to go. I was gung-ho. There was no plan B. There was nothing. So my message is towards those who are in high school. If you are the type of guy who really wants the challenge, but it comes with a massive reward. And the reward is, if your measure of success is money, if your measure of success is the prestige, you do get a lot of prestige from being a US graduate. But it's just hey, am I going to be famous? How do people look at me and stuff like that? The US is not for you. But if it's it's like a self-gratifying journey. If it's maturity based, then the US is for you. This is the target population of the US, and this is what they select for. What sets the US apart is, as I said, what was the average age of med students in my class? 26. 26.
Well, actually, I want to touch up on that. That's one thing I actually really like. I found, at least for me, my opinion, going through medical school, I think I really came in and really honed my craft in was it third year? Yeah, that was when I really honed in my craft. I feel like jumping straight out of high school to med school is, I don't think it's ideal personally. I like having that room to develop how to learn, because then you maximize where it counts. Absolutely. Medical school.
Absolutely. Well, honestly, wise words from a wise man. Completely true. So medical knowledge in general, we can only begin to learn medicine at the age of 18. It's not about that.
I remember someone told me this, I forgot who. Medicine is not, the content isn't difficult, but it's like trying to sip a glass of water from a fire hydrant.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Drinking from a fire hose, basically. That's absolutely it. So also, I think getting to understand the other aspects of medicine aside from the medical knowledge, the other parts of it, requires a sense of maturity, and that sense of maturity comes with a challenge. That challenge in the
time.
Challenge and time. Exactly.
It's impossible to expect an 18-year-old to appreciate it compared to like a 24-year-old.
That's the word I'm looking for. To appreciate what you're being taught.
Yeah.
Medicine is not just about the knowledge. It's honestly a way of life. I know people don't like it when I put it like that. It sounds very cliche.
It is.
It's a way of life. It's not just about your medical knowledge. It's the way about you hold yourself. You hold people around you. So giving yourself enough time to brew that to brew your brain into something that's able to hold that capacity or the density of such material requires someone to go through a bachelor degree, to be challenged, to have some contingencies that before you get, it's like, hey, you deserve to go through this. Going out of high school, you're very naive. You don't appreciate what you have. You really don't.
You don't, and you shouldn't be expected to. Either.
Absolutely.
It's not fair.
Absolutely. And again, I know my knowledge of what I'm saying right now. When most people listen to this in Kuwait, and I think that's very fair, they're like, dude, why would I put myself through this?
Yeah.
Close it. And I think that's completely fair. That's completely right. Kuwait is not a meritocracy. It will never will be. But for those of you who really want to be the best versions of themselves, go to the US.
But, one thing that I do like in what you're saying is also the fact that you're not glorifying medicine. And I think this is one thing that I want people to really take away, is that I love being a doctor. I love being in medicine.
Yes.
But, there are other fields that need attention,
Oh,
and
yeah.
sometimes because I've seen people who maybe not succeeded through medical school, and they're like, oh, I'm a failure. No, not at all.
Oh, hell no. Absolutely
No,
not.
absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
You have so many options. So many options. There's a lot of things to do which are equally as amazing. And what I appreciate is just that maybe you don't get into med school in the U.S., you still are a strong, you still have potential, you still have things to do.
Exactly. Again, it's all relative. It all depends on how much you're willing to risk it, how much you're willing to work on yourself. The people who came back, some of them have began establishing stuff that are way better than what I have going on right now. Think about it. I'm back here doing a training year, and then I'm going to go do residency. A lot of these guys have established a lot of successful. I know a guy who's written his own book, started his own podcast, sharing the word. He's currently like an affiliate with the WHO. So he's really worked on himself. It's not the end all be all.
Wait, doctor, or you mean?
No. He didn't complete the program.
There we go. See that. Amazing. Amazing.
Look, the idea. We're not all meant to be doctors. And a lot of my guys, a lot of the people who went there and began to study biology, they just like the biology. They didn't want to do medicine. It's completely fine.
Not everybody's meant to be a doctor, and being a doctor doesn't make you better than anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have stated it any better than that. And I wish that thing, look, I know you and I were kind of a bit mature for our age, but when we're talking to 17, 18-year-olds, one thing we need to keep in mind, look, your parents will love you. Your family members do not care if you do not become a doctor. I know to you that's a measure of success and failure. This is not how it should be.
Yes.
This is not how it should be. Do not measure your success and your failure based on where you are in your life. We all have different journeys. We all have different paths. The most important thing is that you appreciate the moment that you're in and you try to maximize it. You have to put yourself through adversity. I know in Arabic we have a saying, a very famous saying is al-ajru ala qadd al-mashaqqa, which basically means the value you extract is basically on the amount of adversity that you go through.
It's so true.
A challenge is really important for you as a person.
I remember my dad, when I used to be in the UK, God rest his soul, when I used to complain about how difficult it was there and how it was tough, and I still remember he would sometimes just tell me, why do you think I sent you there? You need to go suffer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Honestly.
You need to go and really grind, and maybe you'll fail, but this is how you become. Forget a better doctor, forget a better student. You're going to be a human being.
Absolutely.
A better human being.
And let me ask you, when you look at when you compare yourself to your peers who didn't have the experience of being abroad, your views on life, your breadth of coverage in terms of vision, I'm not talking physically, but I'm talking about your ability to see things that other people cannot. How would you say you've sensed that difference relative to people who have stayed here their whole life?
So I think definitely inherent to just not even, let's forget about going for university. Just traveling in itself is a eye-opening experience. Some of the most impactful moments of my life was when I went to Nepal for a service trip.
Okay.
I did some volunteering there. So I think travel in itself is something that gives you a maturity and a global view.
Okay, but tell me, how would you materialize the maturity? Like, what does it feel like for the person who doesn't know? Like, I know we can all say it's an eye-opening experience, but what does that even mean?
I'll tell you what it is, in my opinion.
Yes.
For me, it's you lose the idea of I am right. I am not necessarily right.
Correct.
People have different opinions that could be. I mean, and it goes so extreme, you know, because that's the thing. You challenge all of your notions and all of your beliefs. I think when you engage in another culture, you know. Now, the bigger question: do I think it's meant for everybody? Do I think you're a worse person for staying? I don't think so.
Yes.
And I don't think it's necessarily for everybody. But I'm just saying, for me, it was a enriching experience.
Enriching.
It was enriching.
It's
It definitely was. And it was not an experience that I'll tell you, like for me going abroad, it was not an experience of someone who was happy all the time and wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
In fact, my issue was that I always, because I grew up in, you know, going to an American high school, whatever, I always thought I should have ended up in the U.S. But see how the world works, that it brings us to this point where we're chatting and I'm realizing, wow, the decision I made at the time was a tough decision, but it was, if I want to be a doctor, it's going to the UK, and that's the only way to secure it as well as I could leaving Kuwait. Yeah. I don't think I would have secured it now based off what we've discussed. I don't think I would have guaranteed it.
Oh yeah, and trust me, I've had to go on a low dose SSRI for seasonal affective disorder because there's no sun there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you don't put into perspective.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised by how much you're up for the challenge once you dedicate yourself.
Oh, for sure. I remember, you know, there was a lot of challenges that came up in the UK that I didn't think I could ever meet. But then once I actually threw myself at it, I did. And I'm grateful for
absolutely.
it. And I'm also, I'm aware of one thing. This is going to happen again. And I'm certain I'm going to fail.
Absolutely.
Not succeed. I'm certain I'm going to fail in the future, but that's required.
Absolutely. And look, we're not here to glorify the grind culture. I'm completely against grind culture. I'm one who like promotes balance as much as possible.
Of course.
But there's some element to being in pain and the adversity that is just like once you get through it, it's just so rewarding.
Yeah.
And when I say rewarding, it's just not a feeling. It's just this. You feel a level of maturity and just like a tranquility that's within yourself that no matter how many times you're going to go through adversity, you've been through so many before. It's like nothing new to me.
I think this is more than anything, it's motivation for people who are going through a tough time and they want to know what it's like to go through it.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean go seek out difficult things in your life, but if you're going through something, regardless of what it is, getting through it is going to be amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's going to be amazing, not in the sense like, oh, I did this. No. Yeah. It's just gonna comes with these like subtle fruits that you realize, I can do stuff that I didn't think I can do before.
Now, on a similar note and more on the medical side, one thing that I'm currently studying for my step exams. Yep. You know, and that's very tough, I have to say, because it's multiple exams, and then also I do want to study for my Canadian exam as well. I want to do all these exams. So, from your experience, I know it's a very grueling process. What would you advise for fellow Kuwaiti Arab IMGs about applying to the US because you have your step exams, you have your CV ready to apply for the match.
Yes.
We're building it right now. What do you think?
So again, they care about, there's on the NRMP itself, there's actually an impact factor list, which is what they care about the most. A lot of it does not apply to IMGs, basically like your ranking in med school and your letters of recommendation. But like if you don't have US medical doctors who are writing it for you, most important thing is your USMLE Step 2 score. And that's a numerical score. Step 1 is pass-fail. Right now it's a 97% pass rate for USMDs. I'm not sure about IMGs. In the past it was like 90% or like 80-something. Wow. Yeah. So right now it's very easy to pass Step 1, but USMLE Step 2 is literally the core of it all.
So put all your energy in that Step 2.
And please be reasonable. There's a reason why USMDs get dibs on everything. You want to be a neurosurgeon? It's very unlikely that you're going to match in the US. Very, very unlikely. Please.
That's a good tip.
Yes, to be honest. It's always good to know what you're up against. It's always important to realize what is within the bounds of reality versus what is not.
Just to not waste your time.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money, because ERAS is expensive.
Yeah.
And it's time consuming. you may not even get an interview. Honestly, you can apply to all 170 programs, which is going to cost you about $7,000 and not end up with a single interview. There are certain filters that every program uses. One of them is, in the US, the program has to pay for your visa. The program has to pay. And a lot of programs do not have the budget to pay for your visa. They have other priorities.
So that's already, it's not about you, it's about your background.
Exactly. On ERAS, you're going to select, I need a visa. And once the program, they can filter electronically. They're going to filter first things first. US IMG versus USMD versus IMG versus a US deal, which is the 4 options. If you select IMG, you're not a US citizen and you graduated from outside the US. You're going to select IMG. You're going to immediately be filtered by more than 100, 150 programs. So basically, you wasted $5,000, basically. And then the second part is, do I have a competitive step score? And for you as an IMG, you have to set yourself apart. If I got, like, let's say a 240 on step 2, which is, I think the average neurosurgeon score is like a 250 something. You need to get a 260, which is like literally way more competitive than 240 score. But this is what I'm trying to say. As an IMG, you have to be within the realms of reality. Kuwait does help you. I don't know exactly how, but if you're going through the process independently, and I think even through the US, you're limited to a few specialties. You are limited to a few. So make sure you always look at the NRMP data. They have data for all IMGs. As a Kuwaiti, you do have certain exceptions, but you have to follow up through chems about what they offer and what they don't offer. I don't know from the top of my mind right now. And once you get your interviews, that's when the real work actually starts. Because once you get an interview, you have like 1 foot in the door.
Right.
So make sure you try to maximize on that. It takes a lot of good communication. They look at the way you hold yourself. What I'm saying about your fluency, your coherency, your vocabulary.
I heard it. They care about if they think you're just going to be a good fit in the team.
Absolutely.
Personality.
Absolutely. They want to look at you. They want to look at.
They want to work with you.
Exactly. Imagine they're gonna have to teach you for 5-6 years. They need to know that you're dependent on. They need to know that when they put you in a room with a patient, they trust you there. And one of them is, again, they look at the subtle things. How do you hold yourself in an interview? Is your tie well put? Is your suit clean? Is your background lighting good enough? They care about every single thing. And again, the way you talk, this is very important in the US. They look at the coherency of your words, because you cannot be communicating with patients if your language is not there. They care about your communication.
So that's something to bear in mind. Make sure your English is.
Once you get your interview, that's it. They don't care about your CV anymore. Now they're gonna give you a score based on
care about you.
Exactly. Thank you. They care about you. There are a lot of people who had yes, their scores were competitive, but they're not competitive relative to their peers. But your peer is a weirdo, and they can sense that he's a weirdo. He does not fit in the team. They're not gonna pick him. No one's going to want to deal with that for a 5-year residency if you're doing, let's say, general surgery. No one wants to work with a surgeon who cannot communicate. That's a nightmare. But let's say they meet someone who they like. His hobbies align with that of the team. He likes to hike, which is
you know what's a better way to describe it? Frame shift. It's a job interview. It's not. It
is a job interview.
But I mean, we don't think residency interviews are job interviews. No, they're job interviews.
Oh yeah, and just so that people
it's
know,
not like a university interview.
And just so that people know, dentists in the US, when Kuwait send dentists to this, because they do send. The Kuwait is paying for your education as a resident. In the US, that's not how it works. Residency is a job.
But residency in the US.
Yes.
If you go with Kuwait, do they pay for you, or
they have to pay? But what I'm saying is, residency in general, for dentistry, people have to pay for their education. Even US people, you're paying for dentistry school, and then you're paying for your residency education. In the US, no, medical residency is a job. You're getting paid. You're getting paid. It's not that good of a pay, but you're still getting paid for it. You're not paying for an education. It's a job interview. That's why they need someone who they can trust with the job. And they need someone who's very stable. This is very important, because if a program loses you, they have 4 doctors who are, like, let's say in a general surgery program, they have 5 doctors. If they lose one, the other 4 are going to be in one hell of a night. Imagine having call, which is every 4th day on surgery. There's like 2 residents covering day, 2 residents covering, and then one of you leaves. Do you know how much of a hassle that is for everyone? It's a nightmare for everyone. So this is the thing. They need people who are stable. And I think as an IMG, you have to prove that you are up for the challenge. You're not going to let them down. And a lot of
because more is demanded of you than the US, to be honest, because you're coming to a new country and everything.
Absolutely. They need to know that a lot of stuff that you have are in check, that you're not going to let them down. Because if you let them down, they're all going to suffer. They're all going to suffer. And there are penalties for like leaving the match. There are harsh penalties on it. And you do sign contracts, and they are binding commitments. So there is not like, oh, I matched into this program, I don't like it, hey, I'm going to pull out. Goodbye. That's not how it works. Okay. There are severe penalties. You're going to hurt everyone by doing that. So make sure before you apply to the US for residency, you know what specialty you want. You've studied all of the options, the pathways that are available before you commit to something. Because once you commit, there is no going back.
Again, this is what we said. The good thing about you have to be older is that you're more set.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a great
thing. Which is a really great thing. So I know you do miss on time when it gets to doing med school relative to your peers. I know you started med school at the age of 18. This was like a 7-year program. The US is an 8-year program. You start at the age of 22. But where it pays off is that you do start residency a hell of a lot sooner.
Yeah, true.
So you do make up for lost time. You do make up for lost time. And in general, I think most people in Kuwait can't actually end up in residency in the US, but it depends on whether they're sensible and they're willing to do the USM at least.
Well, that's a whole different, because I think, at least for what I got from this talk, deciding about whether to go to the US for med school is totally different than the decision for residency.
Absolutely. And again, it's all depends on you as a person. What do you want? And it's all fair game, and it's all depends on how much you want it. And there's no shame in choosing any career path. And my message is usually to high schoolers. I do not focus on other parts of the population. It's not my interest. Is for those who are in high school, do not close your eyes on the US. I know it's tough, but it's incredibly rewarding. I can't tell you how rewarding it is. I can't describe it. You should just talk to my peers who have been around me. And just, I wish I could show you put on a slate what I've been through and how much I've learned from it.
Well, not just the high schoolers, their parents as well.
Absolutely.
Because they also need to accept the risk that they're going to take with their kids.
And I wish they would put their children at risk. I know it's asking for a lot, but
it's worth it if you get through.
So worth
and even if you don't get through, it sounds like your friend did fine.
Yeah, and I know it's anecdotal data to just data basically, or to have one person as like, hey, he did well and these guys didn't. But we don't have enough of a sample size yet.
True.
And over the years, there are people who are graduating. My friend yesterday, actually, I think, he matched into a neurology program.
Oh, great.
Yeah, congratulations to him. So he's doing very well there.
Oh, cool.
So he's going to be a neurologist now. I think where people shine when they have their accolades stated in the US is when they come back eventually to Kuwait and they want to establish a private practice. Having the board of, being an American board certified and an American graduate will set you apart. There's no doubt about that. But initially coming back as an American-based doctor, the only thing that you actually gain from it is the experience itself.
Right.
Kuwait will not. So I did have so I know this is going to go on a tangent a bit, but one of the sad parts about Kuwait is being the first graduate from America. My medical degree is supposed to be a doctoral degree. It's a graduate degree. I already have a bachelor's degree. They didn't accredit my bachelor degree. They just treated my medical degree as a bachelor degree. And I'm like, that's incredibly unfair.
Yeah, because you have a whole other
I have a bachelor degree and I have a medical degree. And in the US, it's the equivalent of a PhD. But they wouldn't certify it. So if you're willing to let these things
semantics.
go. It's semantics. Yeah. If you're willing to let this go. So this is if you're not a person who cares about his ego that much as being the best version of yourself, the US is for you. It really is. It really is. And you should try it.
Thank you so much. This has been extremely eye-opening for me.
Thank you for having me. I just hope I could just share my message. I really do. And I'm very thankful for you, for your coffee, and just for opening such a platform. I hope it's as eye-opening as I can see it to be in the future. And you've been a wonderful host and asked very great questions. So thanks for having me.
I can't thank you enough, honestly, because this was something that it hit deep for me, because it's something I always wanted to hear about. And I really hope everyone listening heard your message. And I hope it inspires change. I hope it inspires people to go or not go equally.
I hope. Honestly, I'm happy with any decision, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And thanks for having me again.
So that's the last sip of coffee for today then. A final thank you.
One more.
One more. Let's actually. Oh.
That's it.
By that time, the coffee was cold, but still delicious coffee. Amazing guest. I hope everyone at home enjoyed. And till next time.
Take care.
Hope you all enjoyed this episode of The Doctor's Brew. New episodes to listen to with a cup of coffee coming your way every Sunday on YouTube and Spotify. And be sure to follow us on Instagram for all the latest updates. See you next time.